Hey everybody, welcome in. It is episode number 13, Unlucky or Lucky, depending on how you look at it. Chris here, coming to you on Saturday night. John, how are you this week?
Good. And tired, but I always see 13 as lucky.
Well, then we should have a good episode, theoretically. And we got,
Yeah, it's the baker's dozen. It's the baker's dozen. By the way, baker's dozen to me, a baker's dozen should be 11 because like if I was a baker, I would bake a dozen and then I would test taste one to make sure it was okay. So I don't know where they're getting 13 from baker's dozen.
that is very practical and poignant, Kirk. Because I know I wouldn't be able to not eat at least one of whatever I baked.
Or maybe
So
they
maybe
You
make,
just you don't want the other people to die. You want to make sure it's a good donut. So you just you know you
or they make 15 and only give you 13.
I don't know. Baker's dozen seem silly, and I think like the candlestick, the baker, the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker. It's like once the baker became like the erotic baker, like the other two stopped hanging out. They're like, ugh, it's getting weird. I'm getting uncomfortable with his pastries.
Well, Kirk, as non-practicing heterosexual on the Discord, you
I've,
knew.
I've been single for a while, so single seems negative, like you're lacking something. It's like a non-practicing Catholic or a non-practicing Jew. Like it's just kind of like I haven't made anybody and I'm not coupled up, so I'm just. It seems, it seems like it's you guys are practicing heterosexuals because you've made human beings. You've done the thing, right?
Yeah, well, I guess that makes sense.
For better or worse.
Yeah. So just a different spin on it. So
Did you hear what John said? He said
no, what?
he said for better or worse.
For better, for like, look, I'm not proud of it, but I have passed on these genes, and that's the thing. Like, I think I'm thinking about turning my genes into cutoffs. So I don't know what that says about me. I'm just kind of like, who? Just as I don't understand how more parents, and maybe this is just me thinking, but it's just how, like, just the thought of does the world really need more of me? Doesn't that cross anybody else's mind? You know what I mean? Like,
it's
what
it's
have
a
I combed out that I can pass on to something? Nothing. I'm a dummy. You know what I mean? Like it seems instead of just I have to make kids, should I? I don't know.
yeah, that's definitely a
My
growing
PSA.
growing mindset.
Yeah, the population, they're all worried that it's shrinking too much. Not enough people are having kids.
It just and like not for like they're not financially feasible, and it sounds like a really it's a weird way to look at it, like your balance sheet of like, but it seems like it's if I ever have a job where I might feel comfortable enough, then we'll talk. But guess what? In 25 different jobs, hasn't happened yet.
And there's definitely a shred of truth to that. I mean, if my first kid hadn't been a complete and utter surprise, uh, we probably would have waited a few years before to get everything settled. Now we're kind of just stuck where we are.
Right. Well, and I hate to say, but like as a I feel I can float and do whatever, and I can quit jobs that I hate, and I have that luxury because it's just me. I can feed my dog and pay my bit. Like so that just not having that responsibility of other people just leaves me the luxury of saying, "Fuck off, horrible job. I can't take you anymore."
Yeah, but having kids is a lot of fun though too. You've met
Yeah.
Delilah.
I like that. No, it's nice to hear occasionally people say, "Yeah, it's rough." It's because like it seems like as a parent you're almost committed. You have to double. It's hard to get a parent to say, "Yeah, I shouldn't have done that," just because you're in it to win it now. Like, you know what I mean?
Don't get me wrong, my kids are great, and I do enjoy hanging out with them and doing everything. But it's just that sounded weird. It's just it changes things.
Well, it just seems like if you hang out with people long enough, you're gonna get on each other's nerves, no matter who you know what I mean? Like, there's no people that are exactly the same, so there's gonna be friction on that level, and it seems like it's almost just, I don't know, like I think it was a Richard Jenny bit, but he's like, would you rather be single or married? Would you rather be lonely or annoyed? That's whichever one you'd rather be. That's what you go with.
Well, I feel as though the beginning of this podcast took a little bit of a downer. I'm just saying.
Just a little bit. You know, me being a little
Yeah.
macabre. No, kids are great, but you definitely have to be in the mindset and in the
Well, and
position.
bottom line is you have to be willing to put in the work that it takes to raise children. They're not easy. But
Yeah, it's a responsibility. It's a big. It shouldn't. I think a lot of it's like, well, it's just what you do, and it's like, well, is it? Well, can you do it well? Like, can we shoot for that? Like, how about trying to do a good job? Or it seems like a lot of people like, well, my parents did a shitty job, or I came from a broken. Like, somebody left, and there's only one of them, so I can do it better. And like, that's the motivation. But it's like they just jump into it when they're too young and they're not settled, and I don't know. I'm Monday morning quarterbacking it, but it just seems like kids aren't for everybody. There's got to be another way to live your life or affect society. Just then, well, I'm just going to put my dreams onto my kids, and then they'll do it.
well, on that note, I'm going to steer us into something different because I don't think
Oh,
we.
that's only because you're a new dad.
Well, yeah, but still. So I started thinking about episode 13, and of course, 13 is considered a superstitious number, unlucky number. And I wanted to know, I feel as though everybody has some sort of superstition, and I wanted to ask you guys what you thought your biggest superstition was. Goofy, not goofy. Like, I'll start with mine, is I try and avoid stepping on cracks in the sidewalk. It's really weird, but I just do it. That's like a superstition for me. Not sure why,
Oh,
but I figured I'd ask you what you guys had.
No, I don't. I usually buck all superstitions. I don't. There's nothing I routinely try and do.
Kirk?
Well, the stepping. Well, just real quick, this not stepping on the sidewalk crack is so you don't break your mother's back. That's,
Yeah.
like, everybody knows that. That's why you. That's from childhood, from way back. And I'll agree. I would agree. You know, I would do that. I would avoid stepping on. For a while, like I had like anything I ate, like if I was eating potato chips or candy or whatever, like I at like twos. It had to be twos. I couldn't eat a handful or three or one. It had to be two. I don't know. I don't know if that was a superstition. But it was just became like a, I don't know, like a habit. Like, all right, I put my, my left sock in my first, and then I do my right. I don't know if that's habit or superstition. I don't know what you'd call that.
Well, it's kind of probably a little bit of both, which
Or-
is why I started thinking about it, because there's so many, I guess you would call it a ritual in that sense, but there's so many like rituals, superstitious kind of things, like for example, just like you, I don't like to end my lunch on a chip. I would much rather finish on a sandwich bite than a chip. I don't know why, but that's like a ritual / maybe it's superstitious so that my lunch doesn't come back on me or something. Who knows?
Well, it's like the Denny's breakfast grand slam. The bacon is saved for last, out sort of as the dessert of the breakfast because it's the best, right? I mean, that's just planning. That's just being that's just not being a dummy, right? I mean, that's what you do. Bacon comes last.
See, this is all
Well, and
sounding like a little bit of OCD.
it may be, but I'm surprised, John, that you don't have anything that you there. I mean, there's got to be something that you do that's at least a little superstitious.
No, I was actually very happy. My first daughter was born on Friday the 13th.
Oh,
Remember
so
that?
So you're a freak, is what you're saying.
Well, and I don't have anything that is habitual or OCD-esque, I guess. Like, I'm trying to think, and yeah.
Well, and it's just kind of funny because I don't necessarily believe in superstition or like walking under a ladder or breaking a mirror or whatever it might be. I don't necessarily believe in it, but I clearly have some sort of tie to that type of behavior, and I only started thinking about it when I thought about episode 13 because, well, it's 13.
Right. I think that's probably a sports thing. I think a lot of I heard Mark Gray say that one time. He goes, he's not superstitious because it's bad luck. I mean, that's you know what I mean. Like there's I think there's so many sports folklore or you can't step on the chalk line or you know what I mean. There's certain things, and I think that just becomes it's like the same thing with John being into sci-fi. His knowledge and what he thinks about space is more than he's just familiar with the vocab. And I think as a sports person, if the guy's in the zone, if the guy's throwing no hitter, you can't talk to him. You know what I mean? There's just certain things where it's just like, okay, I'll go along with the voodoo, I guess, just because that's what everyone else is doing. It's just, team thinking.
Oh, yeah. And baseball, of course, sports in general is full of superstitions, especially baseball. I know, like, don't talk to the pitcher when he's throwing a perfect game. There's lots of that stuff going on, and most of those guys get stuck in rituals too. So it's a thing for sure.
Right, and I think it's just honing your OCD because I just watched the Bird. He was a pitcher from the Detroit Tigers. I never heard of him before, but he kind of had a quirky, weird system where he would get down and he was almost the groundskeeper, manicuring the mound to make it right, and then he had these weird goof. He would talk to the ball and stuff, but hey, it worked. You know what I mean? But so I think there is a quirkiness that is. As long as you can do it, they don't Dennis Rodman. He could dye his hair whatever color he wanted to, but he get 18 rebounds a game and shut the other guy down, and the team would win. Go ahead, you do you.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned baseball. Because John, I had a question for you this week, and it ties to 3D printing because I've been doing a lot of work in Tinkercad. That one's for you, Kurt.
I still don't know what it is. I have a litter box set aside for Tinkercad if he stops in.
So anyway, upon John's tutelage, I have been working on my skills for Tinkercad, and I'm trying to 3D print a wiffle ball.
Which I think has been done.
It has. And so after I attempted my first couple tries on my own, I went and downloaded one from Thingiverse. And my question to you is this. So the one on Thingiverse was okay. Like it was the right size and dimension, shape, all that stuff. But in printing with PLA, it does not hold up to anything.
Well,
so
it wouldn't necessarily because PLA is not exactly the strongest plastic.
So my question...
So you say you need a harder plastic, John?
Yes.
Would you go to a TPU for something like that?
I mean, you could do TPU. Wait, that's the flexible one.
PETG.
PETG. Here's the thing, though. In my testing, yes, there's differences, but it's not significant because for one of my coworkers, they wanted an AR mag mount, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to say it's mag. It's not a clip. And I printed PLA, I printed PETG, and I printed ABS. And they were all very similar in strength.
Okay.
I'm sure the PLA would have broken first under, like, if you tried to bend it in half, and I'm sure PETG and ABS are very similar in strength. The biggest thing is infill. Have you been... but I can't imagine that a wiffle ball would need infill. It'd probably be pretty solid, right?
Yeah, and most of what I had trouble with was the pieces around the holes in the ball is where you lose all your integrity, and that's the first place it breaks.
So was it just caving in on itself, like it was sort of warping, or was it actually kind of snapping? Like what happened?
It actually snapped, and all I did was throw the ball, and it landed in the grass. Like, it was just landing in the grass was enough to break one of the pieces. So I was trying to think of a way that you could 3D print a wiffle ball, but that's why I was asking, is because I wasn't sure if PETG would be strong enough. But based off what you're saying, I'm guessing that I should probably just stick to buying wiffle balls.
I was about to say, how much does a wiffle ball cost?
Yeah, versus how much it's going to cost you to print it, especially in PETG, since it's more expensive than, not by much, but...
Well, that wasn't necessarily the price. It was trying to see if, one, I could do it and make the design myself, and then two, figuring out what the difference, if there would be any, like, because I don't know if you guys are familiar with wiffle ball and, like, the crazy stuff that you can do with wiffle balls when you pitch them. But aerodynamically, like, you see a slider in baseball and, it's got a lot of movement to it. But a wiffle ball, because of the aerodynamics of it, has like 2 times the movement. So it's really crazy. And I was trying to see if I could amp that up at all.
Yeah. The only thing I could think of that would potentially strengthen it would be to make the walls thicker and to potentially run not supports, but you know what I'm saying, like strengthen the inside, like have it have a solid core with struts coming out.
The only problem with that
you got to change the design, is what you're saying. You can't you can't just do a model of a wiffle ball. You got to tweak with make it heavier in the core, and I don't know, and then weird, like a design where it seems like a wind would come in and it would just make it curve or something, make it move, so it's hard to hit.
The other thing because you're looking to kind of amp up what a wiffle ball could do.
Yes.
And if you had a core, especially if it was a solid core, you could potentially do a lot with that, especially if it was strengthened with supports going to, I'm not saying like have the whole ball solid. But having a solid core with an air gap with supports that don't necessarily have to be very it wouldn't have to be many, especially if you upped the wall, because I would imagine that.
So you got to get the wiffle ball to go into a Pilates class and get that core real tight, is what he's saying. That's what I heard.
I believe he's saying from the window to the wall.
Put them on the glass. Okay. Anyway, back to what were we talking about?
My first suggestion would be larger walls, because I looked at I think it's called Yagi, and one of the ones I've seen it's the similar kind of wiffle ball shape, except the walls are very thick. You're not going to necessarily get that thin wiffle ball look, it's going to be a little bit thicker just to survive potentially being hit with a bat. Um, and then I would say just have fun with it and do stuff like, put a core in, see what it does.
Okay. Well, it was interesting enough to spark my curiosity. I worked on it for like 2 nights and tried like 3 or 4 different runs on it to see if I could work it out. And one of the problems I had was having to add some stickum to the print bed because circles don't like to stay put on a 3D print bed.
Right. I now remember back when I was in college, I had a bad case of the wiffle balls. You guys know what I'm talking about, right?
Been there.
Yeah, I was going to say you could print. I'm assuming you're using supports.
Initially, no.
Because you could
What?
support it from just the build plate, and then have it that way it doesn't go inside the wiffle ball. If that makes sense.
Well, yeah, and that's what the suggestion is for the one that I downloaded that was somebody else's design. But I also just used a raft, and that seemed to work pretty well.
Yeah, but the supports will hold it in place a little bit better. I'll have to come up with, see if I can't print one too.
Yeah, it's food for thought because I feel like it would be really wacky and fun to create one of these things that's even more goofy than a wiffle ball has the potential to be.
Well, and that's why I was saying if you threw something, if you changed up, because you wouldn't have to necessarily use like straight supports. You could use almost like fan supports or curved supports, so that when the wind's going into the ball, it creates, a fan type effect where you're, potentially.
Well, when you say supports, I'm picturing like toothpicks or like what do you what is that? Like is
That's
there...
essentially what I'm saying. Is it would be like if you had a dense core like a planet, you would have little pillars that come out and connect to the outer sphere.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, and having a fan type in there, that would be kind of crazy because aerodynamically that thing might be nuts.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is you could do a lot of stuff with just tweaking, like just having fans that would, hell, if you did it right, well, that wouldn't really work. You'd have to print it in 2 pieces, but you could almost do a like print in place bearing that you could put in the middle of it that would spin.
Well, and honestly, when I decided to look up how they make wiffle balls, and it's some sort of polymer plastic that they use to cast it, and then they actually do print it in 2 different sections, and then they pressure fit it together.
Well, and you can do the same thing with PLA and a soldering iron. Have you seen that where you
just melting it? Yep.
Melt the 2 sides and then stick them together.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could almost do that because I mean, I'm obviously seeing a bunch of different styles, but it looks like most of them have the openings just on one side of the wiffle ball.
Right, and that's what gives you the crazy action is the wind coming into that ball from the one side and acting upon the solid side.
See, and I bet, yeah, if you added some fans or some fan blades or some aerodynamic surfaces in there, especially if they were curved like right in front of the openings to kind of give it some crazy dynamics. But I would suggest almost printing it in 2 pieces, doing the solid side or in one, because not only are you going to get much better prints because you're printing a half a circle, and with the cut side down, you're going to have a much larger base for it to adhere to the bed, and it's going to print a lot easier and faster.
Right. Yeah.
Could we somehow use the stealth bomber? Could we print that material so then the wiffle ball would be undetectable to radar and then even more unhittable? I mean, can that?
I mean, in
Well,
theory, I don't
In
think
theory,
they make.
come
I
on,
don't
that
think.
makes sense, right? Come on.
I don't think they make stealth or reactive stealth armor printed
Filament.
material. Yeah.
Okay.
at least not for, pedestrian purchasing.
Probably the
But other
closest
than
we
that,
have is
that would be
carbon
a tough
fiber.
pitch to hit. Yes, but that would be. I mean, that's the pitch you're going with when you really need a strike.
I mean, that's the other thing
I'm
you could
going-
look at, Chris, would be carbon fiber. Because you have the steel nozzles.
Yeah, and I thought I've been toying it around. It's been kind of fun just thinking about it. I mean, it's all new to me, so my brain doesn't necessarily see it the same way yours does, but I've been enjoying just tinkering with it. And, you see my end game now is trying to come up with a wiffle ball that goes a little bit crazier than a normal wiffle ball, because I think it would be just a hell of a lot of fun to play a game where you have no idea what you're going to see from the ball coming at you.
Yeah, I would suggest thicker walls. Because thicker walls with solid infill. It's going to take longer to print, but especially if you print it in two pieces, just the rigidity of having that because I would assume the one you tried was probably 4 layers thick, if I had to guess.
Probably.
And if you went 8, because if you did it, you could almost do it in vase mode too. Maybe not with the holes. You could do the solid side in vase mode for sure. No, you can't. Vase mode's only 1 layer. I'm just rambling.
It's all good. Like I said, it was just something that I wanted to bring up because, it's fun. It's a wiffle ball. It's nostalgic. And if I can get something designed that is crazy, that's just even more fun.
Kick the wiffle ball up a notch. You want to 2.0 it, make it even
Crazier.
wackier. Yeah, that's the goal.
Yeah, because I always got a kick out of like curveballs and sliders back when I played, just to see the motion on them and how they can really mess with your brain. Well,
Right, like if you could make a wiffle ball like a screwball, like every time you threw it, it was like a screwball, even though you didn't have to screw up your elbow to do it. Like that would be cool.
well, they already do that. Like the pitches that you can throw with a wiffle ball, like you see some of these people throwing these pitches and it looks like it's going to hit you for the first, I don't know, 15, 20 feet. And then all of a sudden it just like dives off into the strike zone. And you're like, how the hell did that happen?
Right, it's like a splitter, same thing. Like at the bottom just drops out, and it's just 3 inches lower than where it was, and you look like an idiot.
Yeah, well, you'll have to look up some wiffle ball pitching videos on YouTube when you get a chance, and just watch some of these pitches, and it'll blow your mind a little bit.
Okay, I never. You know what? That's an odd book report, but you know what? I accept the challenge. What do I have to do? You have to YouTube crazy wiffle ball pitcher movement. All right, okay.
Yeah. Hey,
Never thought I'd be doing that, but who knows? What you know what? I bet it's neat.
when I'm up late with the baby in the morning, this is the stuff I do. What can I say?
Hey, hey, you got to pass the time somehow.
But on the plus side too, John, since we're talking about 3D printing, I wanted to throw out that I have been working a lot at this, and I successfully designed those caps. We got them put on the boat.
Nice.
And yeah, they fit just right. My measurements were correct. One of them has to be tweaked just a little bit, just, because nothing's ever you don't always measure correctly.
Did you take my advice and get some calipers?
I actually have some on order as we speak.
Yeah, those make all the difference, especially with Tinkercad, because when you can get it down to the millimeter, it makes it so much nicer.
Right, but Tinkercat marks everywhere, which is really annoying.
But yeah, so it was kind of nice. I was able to print the caps. Now these were just essentially caps to go over um, the metal arms on a Bimini cover. Like the Bimini top that comes up has metal arms, and when it's folded down, uh, the metal tends to be kind of sharp. So if you worry about it cutting the cover on the boat, and so I just printed these caps to go over the metal arms so that you don't have to worry about any kind of cuts. And then I just sanded the corners down, and life is good.
Nice. Both my
Wait, well
printers.
done. Way to use technology. Well, bravo.
I have a 3D printer and 2 hours worth of Tinkercad expertise to be able to create a big square. Yes.
But don't
Somehow you made it safer to vote.
see, and that's the way to look at it. Though is yes, it took 2 hours, but the fact that you were able to create it, and now you're learning skills as you go. Even if it's doesn't work, you're still learning, and that's something
Oh,
that
I think it's wonderful. Like I said, the other one that I had to create was a little more intricate because it has two different posts that it has to attach to, and of course they're different sizes and different shapes. But I was successfully able to create a model of it. All I have to do is just adjust the positioning of the one arm, basically.
yeah, and that's where was I going to go with that? See, and that's how I got started with Tinkercad. Is I just went in and started making stuff. Didn't necessarily make it to be printed, just made it to make and understand. That's how I've gotten laughably average at Blender. Because I used to be a lot better back God, almost a decade ago. Um, but then,
Like, does anybody on Blender make smoothies? I'd only want
I,
smoothies.
I
Blender.
made a milkshake in my blender yesterday. So
Isn't it good?
yeah.
Blender, yeah. That's what I use Blender. I don't know what the kids are doing with Blender. I make smoothies.
see, and my advice for anyone trying to learn a new skill is just do it. That's how I've done it. And I'm not saying it's going to be that easy because I'm weird like that. But like for Chris, if you really wanted to try and give Blender a go, the most I don't know if it's exactly the most popular, but the Blender Guru on YouTube has a donut tutorial. Relatively simple, relatively easy, but you can make a 3D or realistic looking donut in Blender in about an hour.
What is the donut? Because you're making me hungry. I'm not thinking of the
It's
right thing.
no, you are. It's a donut with
He's
icing
talking
and
about
or sprinkles.
Okay, so you make one of those online. Perfect. That'll help you with your social media.
it's great because you get to make a donut, but it doesn't give you any calories. So
That's the baker's donut. That's the no calorie donut. There we go. Figured it out. Check. Next. What's next on the list? Budget. Ah, Christ. That's hard.
no, but seriously, like John was saying, it is. I was scared of Tinkercad because it's different and it's new, and I didn't know anything about it. And he showed me a few things just to get me started, and you realize very quickly that if you just sit down and look at it and try a few things, you start to get the feel of it, and then all of a sudden you go, oh shit, I guess I can do this.
Well, isn't that most thing? I mean, it's certain like I don't know, like learning like cars or something. If someone's not yelling at you, you idiot, it probably helps. But it's just you just learn whether it's doing stand up comedy or playing in a band or what. It just there's certain things where I mean, you can read about it or you can absorb, but you just got to do it.
Well, and if you think about it, that's actually gotten way easier in the last few years. Like, I remember having to fix. I had a 1991 Toyota Celica, and the only way that I could work on that car would be to go and buy those old books at the auto store that had, every technical, all the details of how to fix that car. But they were, $20, whatever. Nowadays, if I need to figure out where something is on my car, I YouTube, because I guarantee there's going to be someone that has done something similar to their car on YouTube as a tutorial or something.
YouTube is great. I mean, that's pretty much what I use it for, is finding out things that I need to know.
Yeah, and I think it's taken the place of like as a guitar player, to learn how to play a song. Like you'd go to the local guitar shop in your place and like where they bought magazines, or you'd have to take lessons from the guy who would. And now you just hop on how to play this song, boom, on YouTube, and you're there. So it's like, it seems like that. Just the personal, the people you used to have to track down are now just online, so you know where to go. You're getting the information, but there's no human contact.
And more importantly, it's free.
Well, and actually, I would think, free's always important, but you're not limited to your locale. Like, 15 years ago, if you wanted to learn how to do a very specific style of guitar, and no one in your area knew how to do it, you were kind of SOL. Now you can go on YouTube and find, whatever play style, even if it's halfway across the world.
I feel like YouTube should probably be censoring us right now.
Well, I
Just
mean,
how much
this will be going up on YouTube on Monday.
I think people are aware. You know what?
Yeah.
If all of a sudden they listen to this podcast and go, "What? YouTube? I got to check that out." You're wow.
Especially if they're watching it on YouTube.
Right? Yeah. If you're like, what? Yeah, the thing you're watching it on. Oh, I'll have to search other stuff other than Fuzed Relativity, which is awesome. But there might be other awesome I have to discover. They might have a couple other videos.
But
I don't know. I've yet to find it, Kirk.
Oh, okay. So nothing has topped us. So, all right, it's a little. You know what? I appreciate the cockiness. Well done.
Well, speaking of cockiness, Kirk, I don't know where I'm going with that, but let's go over to your corner for the week and see what you got going on.
I think you're calling me a cock. I think that was you called me a dick. I think that's what you did, saying it without saying it.
So nothing's changed this week.
Looks like there's a little mold on the cheese.
Yeah, well, that means it's good. It's ripe yet. Look at that goose. Let me get you. It's getting creepy. Somehow that thing is just going to stab you with its beak. It's just going to, you never saw it coming. But so yeah, you know what, Kirk's Corner. I came up with a new idea. Basically, over the years, I've had a lot of different jobs. I've had, if you don't count repeats, probably close to 25 of jobs I've had. So essentially, I thought I would just then pick one of them and then kind of say stories or jokes or fun stuff that happened to it, and then you guys could pop in because. Like the first one is substitute teaching. I think a lot of people, they were always interested in that. They were like, oh, I remember being horrible to the sub. How did you do that? How did you maintain? So here's some jokes about substitute teaching. Because basically it wasn't substitute teaching. Like people were like, oh, how was substitute teaching? I didn't really teach per se. It's more I took attendance and showed the movie Rudy. So it's an inspiring tale. And the first time I ever subbed, was for a high school German class. I lost complete control of these little bastards. Halfway through the class, they marched out and they invaded the French class. Who surrendered immediately. They surrendered immediately, by the way. French. And then, well, what you guys have kids? Well, here's the thing. I'm subbing. I'm trying to be a good person. I was subbing for special ed class, right? And then a kid came in late, and I'm like, "What are you supposed to mark him?"
Wow.
Exactly.
Oh.
Come on. Well, you can't. I felt like a horrible human. Hey, you're tardy. He knew. He knew. There was nothing sharp. He was wearing a helmet. Smelled like tinkle. You don't need to beat a dead retarded horse. Okay. All right, and then after to be a sub, here's all you need. You need to get a college degree, get fingerprinted, and then go sub orientation. And here's that after 8 hours of boring me in substitute orientation, they go, here's the thing. Number one rule, only thing you really need to know is don't touch the kids. And like three people got up and left. They're like, do. I'm like, oh God, you guys are creepy. But I wish everybody, 82 in your handbook. Don't touch the kids. Seriously, we're not screwing around, you pervert. And then they opened it for Q&A. And then I was like, I wasn't paying attention. Can we touch the kids? And then a grandma actually stood up and she's like, I've subbed and the kids want to hug you when they leave sometimes. And they go, is that okay? And they're like, no, you pervert. Didn't you read the do not, like, I picture this grandma having to stiff arm this poor kindergarten, stiff arming granny. Nothing? Okay.
Kirk, did you ever substitute for a substitute teacher?
I would be the guy, like we like you better than the other sub because you don't care. You would sub for the real teacher. Here's the thing, if the kids didn't care what the real teacher thought, they really didn't care what the sub thought. So that's how, if the kids actually wanted to know the note you were going to write, they actually respected the teacher. If they were combative, you're like, oh man, they just hate this teacher. It made me learn that, yeah, I don't want to be a teacher because it seems like they get a lot of crap.
Well, I was going to say, kids are undeniably mean anyway.
Bastards. That's what I learned, and just the way they talk to each other, and I just wanted to kind of, like, the kid, I was like, look, and, I know this has been your whole life of getting shit on, but in 3 months, you won't know any of these people. If you keep in contact with 4, I'll be impressed. But they've, on their, for 13 years, they've been like, ugh. Just have to deal with this and it's like their first horrible office job.
Well, and to throw in a little bit, my kids, I don't know where they got it from. I don't know how, but they started calling each other potato heads as insults. Don't know where that came from.
Is that some hip news
sure
slang that we don't know about?
I don't know. It was just their default insult for a while.
I suppose it could be a lot worse.
I guess. But, back to I actually had a class of, when I was subbing, a class asked me if I could buy them beer. And I thought about it. And I'm like, you know what? I could, but you guys look like pricks and you wouldn't invite me. So no. Why would I do that?
And that's why you didn't do it.
Well, and it's illegal, but also, come on. Well, I remember one, like, it wasn't that bad. Probably the highlight, I remember one, I subbed for it was PE class, and I played Bump Out, and I just destroyed a bunch of 14-year-olds in Bump Out. That's what I did for the first 4 hours of my day. And then I went and covered in English class, and I watched the second half of Princess Bride. I'm like, this wasn't a bad day.
I was going to say, yeah, that's a great movie.
Exactly. Like, I got to watch an 80s class where I'm just kind of like, all right, I was in that mindset of playing basketball in the sports. I just crushed all these kids. And then, oh, there's Andre the Giant. Awesome. And they paid me $80.
Anyone
well, the German class joke, the thing, I would, when I would sub, I would just show the kids my stand up just to amuse them because there's nothing else to do. But, one of the classes actually, the German class joke came in, and the kid was in German class, And I saw him next year, and I guess he goes, "We did it." And I go, "You did what?" And he's like, "We invaded." I guess he pestered because of that joke. He bothered and pestered his German teacher to let them go invade the French class. And at the end of the year, she was just worn down and bored, and they did it. Like a German class marched into the French class with paper wads, threw them at the French kids, made them sign a peace treaty, and surrender. So because of a joke that I told, like high school kids reenacted Nazi behavior, and it gave me $80 for that. I'm like, that's a weird. It's an
Yeah.
odd day.
Well, you left your mark, Kirk.
They learned that they learned something, sort of, like.
I don't know about that.
I mean, yeah.
I don't know if that would fly as much anymore, but
Well, hey.
Yeah, there was a couple.
We can't argue
Well,
with success.
there's like a child development class. This is okay. You guys both have kids, but I remember this specifically because it was a baby. It was like a doll that would cry, and to get the baby to stop crying, there was a metal slot that they had to put a key into the back of the baby. That was like So basically, they're like, "Hey, high school kids, that baby won't stop crying. You know what you need to do? Shove a metal thing in its back. That'll stop the crying." That seemed horrible. That seems bad.
just a little bit.
PSA: don't do that.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, don't. That's works. It's a fake baby. Don't do it as a real baby. But that's what they're supposed to be doing.
Well, hey, I think we should let's go over to some space talk. We're hitting that time where we gotta get our last segments in here. Oh, it happened again, John.
Oh, it did.
All right, you went back to the opening. Granted, the opening credits are cool. I will give you that. But you
Yeah, I that whole thing was, I wanted to make it easier on me so I didn't have to go from the starting to that, then to this. And I thought, oh, I'll just do that. The downside is whenever I switch, it starts back up again.
Well, I'm going to start off, as I normally do, with some ingenuity talk. The helicopter did its sixth flight, and it did not go smoothly this time. The first 5 flights, we've been able to say success. The sixth flight, they pushed it to 33 feet in the air, and 9 meters per second, 9 meters per second speed, and had it fly for 140 seconds, a little over 2 minutes, which is pretty impressive that they've been able to push it that far. I know it had the capability, they just weren't initially going to do that. But something happened with the navigation cameras that they're using, and it started to oscillate in the air back and forth. Essentially, it lost control. It was able to push through and land safely, but that's something they're going to have to try and fix now.
It was a camera issue, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was missing frames from its downward navigation camera. And so,
right, well, it's just when the aliens stole it for a second, so don't worry about that.
well, that's what I was like. I was like, maybe it's just the aliens that don't want to be photographed, so they're like messing with the camera.
Very anti-paparazzi. Like, look, I'm a famous Martian. Get away. Don't take a picture of my kid.
So that's what happened with the helicopter, and it did land safely, so everything is okay on that front. But now they've got to try and fix the problem. And
Well, unless it's a hardware issue, it shouldn't be too big of a fit or a problem. Even if it is, it still shouldn't be that big of a problem.
from what I can tell, they had actually planned for a problem. They had essentially said, hey, what if this happens? And so they had a backup plan ready for it. So My guess is they'll have it up and running again relatively soon.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and they this is more than they're expecting to get out of it. So I think they're just kind of, I don't know,
Yeah, this is all
oversensitive is the right word, but they're just looking like, look, this is beyond our expectations, so we're going to be overly critical. I don't know. The camera went wonky for a little bit.
Well, I mean, the problem is if it does have a critical thing and it lands anyway but on its feet, it's done.
So it's got to be precision when it's coming. Like there's not, yeah, it can't roll an ankle. It's got to be boom.
Like a typical quad. Well, any quad really, or any helicopter really, once it's on its, if it lands on its side or on its upside down, you have to physically fix it.
It's like a turtle.
Yeah.
So if it teeters at any point and tips over, it's space junk.
Can we go back to the turtle analogy? Does it like pizza? Does it live in the sewers? Is it? Come on, you guys, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
What about the middle-aged? Are they, I don't know, in their 40s and still kind of hacking it? Ninja Turtles doesn't have the same ring. Doesn't pop.
Not as much. Ooh, speaking of, totally just made me think of it. Did you, John, I know you know this, but did you know that they're doing an adult version live action Legends of the Hidden Temple show?
I did not.
Yeah, they rebooted it, and it's going to be for adults this time, and it's going to be, a typical game show, except for it's Legends, for adults.
Yeah.
What's the show again? I didn't recognize it.
It was a Legends of the Hidden Temple. It was a game show on Nickelodeon back in the 90s.
Oh, okay. I think I know what you're talking. Okay, I get it. Yeah, okay.
Purple jaguars and teal anacondas.
I'm more of a double dare. You can't do that on television, but okay, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It'll be worth a watch. Sorry, that was a sidetrack, but what do we have on the screen? What's this?
So this is the pictures of clouds on Mars.
These are the Mars clouds. You're right. They look like clouds.
What's the what do we got for significance of this?
Sorry, the kids started arguing. So they were trying to, if I understood this correctly, they were trying to see the formation of clouds, which happen on the equator during the summer, and they were able to get some pictures. This is the first one I saw on NASA's site. Let's see if this one's animated. Yeah, that one's a little bit more animated. So the significance here is there are clouds on Mars, and they've always speculated that they're like clouds on here with water molecules, all of that. They think these are a lot higher than the water clouds would typically be, which means that they're speculating that they are CO2 ice. I wanted to say water CO2, but that's not right. They're ice CO2 that's forming in the atmosphere.
What's the implication of that? Anything?
Not really. I don't know. I'm not, obviously not a meteorologist. I just think the fact that there are in fact clouds on Mars is amazing, but only around the equator.
In my brain, it makes sense because there's an atmosphere.
Yeah.
I like how, Chris, you keep referring to in your brain like as it's completely different than the rest of the world. But in here, it makes complete sense.
Gotta remember that.
Bananas for breakfast? Hell yeah, makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I'm a step above a gorilla.
That's right. Huh. I mean, cool to see clouds. I mean, any Mars pictures that we see, I'm still blown away by, just because we're seeing pictures from a planet that's millions of miles away.
Well, and because you said like it's cloudy. There's clouds there all the time. So do you think Martians are going to be more into grunge music?
Well, they may be picking up, you know, just now getting our 90s Nirvana grunge. So,
Right.
Well,
It's cloudy all the time. They wear flannel, so they're already kind of ripe for it.
yeah, I mean, if it was 20 light years away, they might just be getting that. Mars has had it for, 20 years.
Right. They got angst, I'm sure. So they can relate.
the other thing, John, that I was going to ask you about, I've been picking your brain a lot tonight, which is I'm curious. I was reading again. We talked about the Artemis mission last week, and I keep reading articles that say it's not going to happen. They're not going to get there by 2024.
See, I don't agree with that. And this kind of leads into what I wanted to talk about was I think Starship is going to nullify a lot of stuff like I was talking about last week.
Well, my question is this. Sorry I cut you off, but I got to get my question out is one of the main sticking points is the gateway that we talked about.
Yeah,
Why the hell don't they just land on the moon?
because you still need fuel to get off of the moon.
Oh.
But your point remains valid. So, and this is why I think the Lunar Gateway, I don't necessarily think it's not going to happen. I just don't think NASA's current version is going to happen, which would lead credence to it not happening in 2024. And the reason for that is Starship, I was looking this up before the podcast, Starship can hold two, I just blanked on the size, but it can hold 2 shipping containers and take them into space, which is way more cargo than we've ever had. Yes, the Saturn V could take equivalent amount of tonnage to space, but I think just the size of the cargo is going to be huge. Because if Starship can reliably take up a lot of if it can only take up 80 tons every time it launches, but then it can land and relaunch the week next, it can build a much larger space station than NASA currently is envisioning. And if it can build a large enough space station and bring up a lot of supplies on the cheap, you can theoretically build a large spaceship in space that is designed just for space travel, which would lead to like Star Wars destroyer. Not exactly a destroyer, but we could build something in space that could go to other planets in a relatively quick time without having to deal with the current issue of getting it off the planet. Because that's the biggest thing. Like most sci-fi spaceships you see, they don't make sense ever going into a planet's orbit. Or not orbit, into the planet's atmosphere. Because the amount of power to get out would be incredible. And
So something on the moon. It's almost like you're Biden talking about the infrastructure and like setting up chargers for electric cars. This is almost like we need to set up a charging station where they can fly to there to then recharge, then to blast off to go explore further.
And recharge is a great way to put it because realistically, so I've been thinking a lot about space flight, essentially. And there's two main a lot of main methods, but two of the biggest ones are chemical propulsion, which is using, fuel, burning fuel, and ion, which is electricity. Now, the biggest problem with ion engines is they're not efficient. Or not, they're actually, I take that back. They're extremely efficient. They're not very powerful. So you can use very little
They
fuel.
zap their power quick.
Yes. And part of, like, there's satellites that currently have ion propulsion. The problem is, the farther you get away from the sun, the less powerful the solar panels become, which means the less powerful the engine becomes. Now, if you are able to build something in space, you could potentially take up a nuclear reactor, like we have on submarines, and fix it to a spaceship in space, and be able to power ion engines, potentially to a degree that would make them viable for spaceflight.
A nuclear generator would essentially be a air compressor, or a generator while camping. Like, that's the equivalent. That's the thing that's powering everything.
Well, and that's why I kind of equated the Starship to a submarine a few episodes ago. But that's where I see, like, space travel with chemical rockets is very limited. Yes, we can do it. Like, going to Mars. If we can get refineries on Mars that can build methane for the starships, that's fine. We can have a two-way system to Mars and back. The problem is...
why bring fossil fuels, a thing that's going away, to this brand new technology when there's a more efficient way to go about it?
They're not fossil. It's methane. So it can be produced, and it's what they do is they produce it.
Do and methane.
Yeah.
I was like, Chris is going to call him on this. He just said do.
But that's why they want refineries on Mars, and that's why I was going to say Ingenuity. That's not right. That's the helicopter. Perseverance. And that's why they were doing those oxygen tests to see if they can make oxygen out of the atmosphere. Because if you can get oxygen and carbon, you can make methane. And all Starship needs is oxygen and methane to go. But if we wanted to do manned missions to, say, Titan or any of the moons around Jupiter, chemical propulsion it's not efficient enough. The trip would be years long.
So even with the amount of methane that Chris could produce, it's still not efficient.
You would need a herd of cows, and I don't even think that's feasible.
Or Chris eating a burrito, essentially.
But you gotta be like that, Kirk.
But that's why I think Starship is going to completely dominate, especially once it goes orbital. And if it goes orbital this year, by 2024, we could absolutely see stuff all over the place, because you now have a rocket that can potentially launch reliably multiple times in a week. Like, the whole plan of Starship is to land both the booster and the rocket, and then put them back together and launch it again.
Well, John, I don't mean to cut you off again. I'm sorry, but
no, you're good.
I'm gonna have to get Boogie in here in a minute. Can we jump over to the off topic real quick so I can show off my
if I can remember where I put it. There we go.
All right. So for our anniversary, my wonderful wife got me a outdoor grill. And I don't know if you're familiar with Mongolian barbecue, but we decided to make our own at-home Mongolian barbecue. And it was a lot of fun. and it was fantastic. So you can kind of see our little setup we had going on here, and the left, of course, is the fixins, and then the right is the barbecue as it's cooking on the griddle, and it was worth it.
Yeah, I already said I was jealous of
how
it.
do you clean? Like, can you take the hose to it, or how do you clean it? You scrub it?
Yeah, just scrub it.
It's just a steel cooktop.
Yeah,
I've got a tiny griddle at home, or tiny countertop griddle myself. I use it
It's
all
like
the
a
time.
George Foreman grill, but it's not slanty. I don't know what's going on.
It was really fun. It was I'm a fan of Mongolian barbecue, so why not recreate it at home?
It's definitely cheaper.
Nice. Well done. Yeah, it's always cheaper to cook at home. So yeah. So well done.
That's part of the reason why we didn't do something last Friday. I was making 27 breakfast burritos to freeze.
Nice.
I just had a chorizo breakfast burrito. Chorizo. Chorizo's
Kirk,
good.
Did you have anything for off topic this week?
Well, it's another food one. You kind of started the food thing. I found a story where it was in Philadelphia. They built a 510-foot long cheesesteak. So it was like a world's record. They set a world's record for it. So they built 510-foot cheesecake or cheesesteak, and I'm guessing the next day, you know what they didn't build? A salad. But anyway, but like, just seriously, Chris, how many feet of cheesecake could you eat before it started to spoil? You know, like that Simpson episode where he ate the sandwich. Like, do you think you could get like 3 yards? Like how many? John, you can guess too. Like how many feet would Chris be able to take before it soured and he stopped eating?
I don't know. I used to eat a lot more than Chris.
I don't know about that, dude.
Well, I mean, when I was cross country. Not now.
It depends on the size of the cheesesteak, but I'm gonna guess I could probably do.
I was gonna say I could
2 feet.
That's it.
I bet you know what? It wouldn't turn bad. You could probably eat it for 7 days. You could eat for a week, I would say. So like 7 days of eating it. What, like 3 feet a day?
I could easily eat 2 Subway footlongs. So, and granted, those aren't actually foot long. So,
right, yeah.
Well, 510 feet of cheesesteak is a little bit too much. I don't think I could take that one down.
Right. Yeah, you'd half.
I know for a fact that I can eat 3 pounds of food in one sitting relatively easily. So, however many 3 pounds of cheesesteak is in a foot form, I can handle it.
Yeah, see, I would guess I could probably do a couple, 4 or 5 feet a day.
Oh, I'm thinking of one sitting.
Well, one sitting, I could probably easily do 3.
But then that's what you're eating for lunch, breakfast, dinner. It's just cheesesteak.
Which I would absolutely do.
You know, what's wrong with that, Kirk? Yeah.
No. I'm just letting you know.
The last week has all been breakfast burritos for me.
That's delicious. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not complaining, but
yeah, if I could, cheesesteak. I saw on the cheesesteak front. Apparently, there's this thing in Philadelphia where they take a cheesesteak and they wrap it in a piece of pizza. I feel like I want to eat that.
Yeah.
It's probably good, but I had like bacon dipped in chocolate, and I was like, "This is horrible. You ruined bacon." So it might, I don't know. Those are both good things to eat.
I could actually see that because I was just about to say, it doesn't sound good, but my normal Domino's order is Philly cheesesteak and bacon.
Oh, so you're already there. Yeah, you've crossed the threshold.
It's all relative. I think.
Right. And so one more. So just a steak in the heart kills a vampire. A cheesesteak gives the vampire heartburn and then forces them to nap. And then 20 years later kills them with a heart attack. So a cheesesteak through the heart is more of playing the slow game.
I want cheesesteak now.
All this cheesesteak talks makes you hungry. Go to Large Marge's. You're far.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a trip, but we
It's
have a
worth it.
cheesesteak place called Large Marge's, John, and they have pretty good
Oh.
cheesesteaks, but the way that I order it is they do any of their cheesesteaks that you want. I get the green chili cheesesteak, and instead of on a bun, they serve it on French fries covered in Cheese Whiz.
But they're really good. They're the thick French fries. They soak it up. It's
Steak
Large
cuts.
Large Marge makes us think of The Simpsons too. Large Marge. Large Marge. All right, maybe it's
So-
me.
John, did you have any off topics? Did you have any food off topics this week?
Other than my burrito in Denver's, I did make a pizza quesadilla that my air fryer cooks really well.
So like a pizza on a tortilla?
Yeah, it's just a quesadilla with I put pepperoni and pizza sauce in it, and then froze
That's-
it for because we're back into kind of a meal prep type of situation.
Just plan it for the whole week, then you have to worry about it. You know
yeah.
what you're eating. Yeah.
Yep,
I bet
and
you
snacks.
Delilah would like a pizza quesadilla.
Well, and that's what I use my griddle for a ton. That and the burritos.
Nice. Now we've been talking about food, and I'm hungry again, and I'm bummed about it because I don't actually want to eat anything. All the MSG and the Mongolian barbecue I just ate knocked me out.
Are you ready to crash? Yeah, you got the big. You're doing the belly rub, I bet. You're doing the belly rub.
Yep, just like Buddha. Well, I think we will call it an evening on that. I do have some, fatherly duties I have to take care of here. And
They
They
so,
can't cut their own switch yet, so you still got to cut their switch for them.
I got to change some duties, is what I have to do.
Not yours this time? Not
Not
yours?
mine. Hey, not mine this time.
Oh, good for you. Yay! All right. No duties in crit. Okay.
So, good news on the streaming front. I have got a capture card now, so hopefully this week we will get into streaming some games and catching up on some of our lacking.
Get back to baseball.
Yeah, maybe get some baseball going. Me and Kirk.
I was gonna say Monday. I might be able to join, especially if you want to do something in the evening.
Look, I've been wearing a cup every show in preparation. I'm ready.
Thanks for the crotch update, Kirk.
We might continue Kirk's lemur adventures too.
Oh,
That's
good.
that's why I wear the cup. The lemurs were going after me.
Me and Kirk have been enjoying baseball talk recently, and I'm going to keep working on my wiffle ball. Maybe we'll figure out how to work that in. And yeah, we'll go from there. But lucky number 13 in the books. Nothing bad has happened, so it's always a good thing.
Oh my God! My butler murdered himself. Bum bum ba. No, okay. I'm just kidding. That didn't happen. My butler's fine.
All right. Well, I'm going to sign off there. Chris, thanks everybody for showing up this weekend. John, always fun. Kirk, you suck. And
Oh.
all
right. Enjoy your breakfast burritos, everybody.
Have a good evening.
Yeah, have a good one.